Hello, everybody. It is Mike Levin on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020, and I am going with this whole live streaming thing. YouTube Live. Right? So since I don't edit anyway, I figure I might as well take advantage of this live feature and see if any of you folks join me while I'm broadcasting or anything. I'm plowing through the work I have to do today, and when I get up to these points, so I'm doing my day-to-day work, and when I come up to things that I can share, when I can share, I do. And that sharing sometimes takes the form of these live streams, more and more as YouTube streams. Because I'm not going to edit anyway, so why not? And so a lot of you by now know that I use this. I'm a heavy user of virtual desktops. It's a feature of Windows 10 and also of Mac OS and also of GNOME and KDE Plasma. Everything has a variation on this. Sometimes it lets you go vertical in a grid, but if it lets you go X by Y, you just use the X and you've got ribbons again. And once again, you've got your whole left to right user interface. And now the YouTube live streaming is controlled from one of these tabs, and we've got sort of these controls here that I set up, 2 concurrent users, so it's me plus someone else. Someone actually joined in. Oh, someone's saying hi, Mike. Okay, let's start using this. Hi, homeless. I am mostly, he probably, unless he's answering, let's see. Let's see if they're still there. Maybe I had 2 and it went down to 1, including homeless. I'll check back to this screen. In fact, why check back? Let me see if I can't put that where I'm going to be doing my main work. So we pop out the chat. And I should look at making these chats, these chat windows, stick to any virtual screen I'm on. Hey, he's still there. Excellent. You are my first live stream chat. So, for those of you not familiar with me, youtube.com/Mike Levin. Easy to get to, easy to find. This is my channel. I've got about 9-point-something thousand subscribers. Hey, I'm live right now. This is very interesting. Let's see what Homeless is saying to me. I'm going to have to work this stuff out. I'm still new at this. I am the alpha and the omega of your chat. Yes, you are. I'm going to use Windows 10. I talk a lot about the shim feature, so all this popping and stuff that Windows does is actually pretty nice. I'll put these things side by side. I'll make this small, so whenever I'm on my browser window, I will see the chat even when I switch between these things. So the point of my video is that I am embarking on a new project, just like any old project, and I'm going to move my drawing thing over here. I wish I could rearrange these things. You have to live with the shortcoming of your operating system shim. These Windows graphic, what you see is what you get, mouse pointer, clicker operating systems are all just merely shims now for bringing up a terminal. I view graphical operating systems, and that includes Windows 10, Mac, GNOME, and KDE, if it is even a thing. I think KDE is even using it. I don't know. It used to be this plasma thing. It was, it had some interesting novel differences, but basically what I'm saying there is Linux desktop has shims for this, which is a Linux terminal, and that, which is a web browser. So all this OS stuff with these virtual screens is really just to provide a place to run your terminal and your web browser. And if you view things that way, you will be operating system and hardware and host OS independent for a good long time. I was talking on my last video that the time frames of fad tools that go obsolete is, as platforms go in and out of vogue, is around 5 to 10 years, whereas more fundamental stuff is 20 to 40 years so far. And I am actually saying lifetime. So the reason for that is so that your skills get better and better, the way they do with musical instruments if you're a musician, or the way they do with weapons if you're a martial artist, or medical implements if you're a doctor. So things are best when they don't change for a good long time, so that your mastery can gradually rise and increase. And that is an issue these days because of VisualStudio.net, which is being pushed very hard as part of the standard install of Anaconda, which is one of the 3 ways to get Python on your modern Windows system. You can either go to a command line terminal, go here and you start typing com, and it always will result in the commands prompt as one of your first things. And if you just type Python in here, I already did, so it'll actually run Python in my case, but for people who haven't, it'll bring you to the Windows Store and start prompting you through the download process. Good idea. Get Python on your machine. It's not bad having the very latest version ready to go on a standard Windows machine, but that's only one of the various ways to get Python on your machine. Another one being install Anaconda, and you get the added benefit of Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebook, which is going to be a big subject of this video. But Microsoft, now having fully embraced Python, is actually stepping in to make sure that your embracing of Python goes hand in hand with another 5 to 10 years of Microsoft-dependency by getting you on their IDE, which, as you can see, I am exposed to. It's in my frequent list. I'm using it a lot like the way I use Notepad now. I have it currently running, and I'm getting ready to start a project. But everything I see happening in here feels to me like it has been lifted from Jupyter Lab. So some of you who follow me know that whenever I start the web browser, I start the web browser from my desktop by clicking a Jupyter icon, which in turn loads the web browser, because first Jupyter loads, then the web browser. It used to be Jupyter Notebook. It's now Jupyter Labs. It used to be this, but now it's this. And you can even see how they're pushing it now that it's ready for prime time. It's version 1.14. Jupyter Notebook is 6.01. So Notebook is a much more mature product, but Lab has all the interesting, innovative things going on in it. And when I left off, I had done a foo program by just saying print bar inside a file named foo, that I actually did added a file, I added a text file, foo.txt, renamed it to .py, and then went to a terminal. I'll open a terminal here, which drops me into GitHub with one more command, cd new repo. You're in your repo location. You can see what's in there. There's my foo. And you can do Python foo.py. Now, and there's your bar. Now, in Jupyter Lab, as well as in VSCode, there are ways to get output of this and to stick with the .py file. Now, the main advantage of VSCode that I can see is that you're always sticking with a py file, and it's the same file that can be picked up and put directly onto your, say, cloud server. If I were to right-click on this, you can create console for editor. What is create console for editor? Oh, let's see, homeless. I watched one of your 20 minutes on. You mentioned obsolescence proof, obsolete proof by learning Linux, Vim, GitHub, and Python. Learning all these things currently. Oh, excellent, excellent. So where does this stuff fit in, like Jupyter Notebook and Lab, when it's Linux, Python, Vim, and Git that I'm advocating? If Linux, Python, Vim, and Git, then why Jupyter Lab, Notebook, and even VSCode? Because I don't think it's poison. I don't think you should stay away from it if it's what you want. It's just a vendor dependency. The answer is that they're easier to take up than Vim at first. That's the answer. You're moving towards Vim, and it's just a better environment. This stuff that I did here, the foobar test, a kind of hello world test that I'm doing in Jupyter Lab, is to make sure that I have at least as much capability as I have over here in more of a Linux terminal environment. However, they have not abandoned those .ipynb extensions. So I did a foo.py, but I did that in sort of a back-end way. And I can run this. See, I can run selected code, foo bar. And it puts it in a very Jupyter Notebook looking environment here. I guess I could do stuff here. Print hello. And it goes down here, but it's, not, it's like a virtual notebook, I suppose it made, so that you can experiment with that REPL environment. I talk a lot about REPL. One of the things, it's not only easier, the first reason is that they're easier. The second reason is that you get REPL. Read, eval, print loop, which is great for learning. I can't express to you how valuable it is to have a REPL environment where you can do things like x equals, spam, execute that, and now x, you're always running that code. It's spam or whatever. It's always there. I'll show you a little bit of x 1 equals p equals the string for p. And now does not, string object does not support item assignment. So strings normally are x for x in, x for x in x. It's bad to use x. Y for y in x. And if you put that in square brackets, you'll see you can go through it as if it were a list. And that's why I thought I could replace the second item in the list of a string. I guess I could do a big swapperoo, like, I don't know, this is a tangent. You get it, it's a REPL environment. It's always running code. You can read your errors, you can change stuff about in-memory objects. And these are somewhat similar things to what you can do in VSCode. However, I want to get to a new Python notebook. So you just hit new, and I'll say Python 3, which uses my default environment. And now you have untitled.ipynb. And this is now a more traditional Jupyter Notebook environment. You have these panels, and you can just get rid of panels. All this stuff is panels that you can just slide around. And this is part of what I'm getting used to. I'll get rid of that foo.py, and now I just have an empty notebook, and I can start to work with Jupyter Labs the way I would with Notebook. With a notebook, x equals hello world, and it's a text editor environment. It's also a REPL environment. It's also a Jupyter Notebook environment, and it lets you do all of the same things, I believe, as Jupyter Notebook lets you do. However, it's got a much more robust framework with these different tabs, and I unfortunately can't demonstrate it to you right now, but there is these concepts of widgets that allow you to do dashboard-like things, little dashboards that show you the output of your function. So you could put a function here, put another panel here, put a slider, and you moving the slider changes the output on that panel, which is really cool. In fact, one of the things I'll be getting to soon is Dask. And Dask is a way to either shove large-scale jobs that normally couldn't fit your hardware through small hardware, or more commonly fit huge jobs that won't fit your hardware onto other hardware that you can scale out and get all the advantages of parallelism and stuff. And when you're using Dask, it has a wonderful dashboard environment. In fact, I'll probably switch to images. It'll sort of give you an idea maybe of what those dashboards look like inside of Jupyter Lab, where you see all this performance output and stuff. Oh, that was another YouTube video. I think that's a mistake. YouTube video on YouTube video. Okay, but you can start to see here that what Dask does is it gives you these dashboard interfaces to show you the performance of how well it's parallelizing. So you have this extreme insight into what's going on with your system, and it doesn't give you the feeling of this local desktop-bound text editing environment like you might get from VSCode. So when getting started with a project, before jumping in headfirst here, like so many things encourage you to do, I suggest that you give Jupyter Lab a try and see if you can't get out of Jupyter Lab the things that you think you are looking for from VSCode. Because all those things about like splitting and joining these boxes and stuff here is all the stuff I've been learning about being the next generation of Jupyter Notebook as expressed in Jupyter Lab, and Microsoft has really just gone and taken a lot of that and incorporated it into their user interface here, posing it as Microsoft innovation and luring you into a hardware dependency path that I think I showed you here before could be keeping you locked into Microsoft for years longer than you ever intended to by, let's see, I'll use red because I've been going with red and just go with a thicker brush. I use pastel. That's not red. One wrong move at this early time when you're picking your tools and you are making this, while it has some good bits like REPL, it's making this your future world. Whereas because there's this existence of this WSL2 thing right here that Microsoft magically gives you in the new versions of Windows becoming available later this year, you no longer have to be inside that red circle, and you can start conceptually making any host OS interchangeable with Windows. Now, there's a little muscle memory stuff to deal with there, like how to go left and right on your virtual screen ribbon, but it's really no big deal. How to do expose all your screens, jump between, how to drop your apps between that stuff is stuff that's very much tied to your host OS. But that's all really shim stuff. It's stuff you can relearn in your muscle memory really quickly, you cannot relearn in your muscle memory really quickly everything that goes into mastering your text editor or visual IDE or whatever you want to call it. But that's basically the tools you use to do development here at the terminal level, which is Vim and Git. Make your code, get your code around. And of course, the code that you're writing is most often Python. So make my pen a little smaller so I can write Python in here. That's your path to independence. That's your path to obsolescence proof. So if you're getting ready to do a project and you're seeing all these wonderful things that advocate VS Code, I advise you to just take that with a grain of salt and to look at your other options out there, because along this path of independence lies the very tool that much of this stuff is being lifted from, which is Jupyter Lab. Okay, thanks for joining me on the stream. Thank you very much, Homeless, for being my first chat. Thank you for being here, Homeless. And if you follow me and you find what I do here on YouTube useful and perhaps different from many of these other people out here on YouTube who have these money-making agendas in mind and this glitziness and stuff, and you like this very straight shooting, here's how I do my work, day to day, make sure you tell people about me. I only have about 9,000 followers, and that's actually really on the small side for the kind of content I'm providing and the kind of value and career development you could be getting out of it. So make sure you spread the word. I'm easy to find. I am, in fact, my exact name at YouTube. So youtube.com/Mike Levin. And if there's ever any doubt, you can also go to my exact name in the web browser. Just put the dot before the IN. .in. There I am, and you'll be able to find your way into my YouTube sites and stuff from here as well. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.